Kia ora, good evening. I'm Hannah Wilkins. Months of campaigning finally came to a head last weekend as New Zealanders waited to see who would be the government for the next 3 years. Nationwide, strong support for the National Party, alongside expected coalition partner ACT, swept through the nation. But across Dunedin, a sea of red managed to hold strong against challenges from blue and green.
New Dunedin MP Rachel Brookings celebrating her win on Saturday night with friends and family, taking over the seat from the retiring David Clark. Those celebrations were bittersweet for the Labour MP, as her party lost the electoral battle to National. Brookings won her seat comfortably with an election night margin of more than 7,000 votes, and the former List MP is looking forward to being able to focus on the Dunedin electorate.
I want to do everything that I can to represent it. And I'm excited to be in a position to be able to do that.
The night saw former National List MP Michael Woodhouse retiring from politics after being offered an unelectable position on the party list. But he's still happy with the results.
Any regrets? Absolutely none. I'm delighted for the party and I'm looking forward to the future.
In the Taieri electorate, Labour's Ingrid Leary was re-elected for a second term, although was pushed harder by National, who finished around 1,300 votes behind.
It's a tight race. There's nothing more we can do. The voters are speaking and the results will be what they are.
Two other Taieri candidates were also elected as MPs. Farmer Mark Patterson returns as a National First MP after being ranked number 4 on his party list, while the Green Party's Scott Willis enters Parliament for the first time thanks to a solid performance by his party with 10.8% of the nationwide vote.
That's showing that the Green Party is here to stay and we are growing in importance, so we are the respected party.
However, the shape of the next government isn't yet fully clear, with more than 500,000 special votes yet to be counted. The final election results are due to be announced on November the 3rd. In Dunedin, the South Today.
And as election fever begins to settle down, re-elected MPs in the South are ready to get into action. Both the Southland and Invercargill electorates became more blue last Saturday night, and both National MPs are setting goals for the next 3 years.
Cutting a very blue cake on election night, a symbol of celebration at National's election night party in Invercargill. Sitting MP Penny Simmons has won the Invercargill electorate over, gaining more than 18,000 votes, almost double that of Labour candidate Liz Craig. It was a much more comfortable result than the 224 vote margin she gained in 2020, matching her party's massive turnaround nationwide.
You know, it's been something we felt the mood was changing in the country, but until you see the results come through, you just don't know, but it feels great.
Simmons is a former CEO of the Southern Institute of Technology, the win giving her added motivation to roll back the controversial Te Pukenga Polytech reforms. Meanwhile, in the seat of Southland, Joseph Mooney was re-elected for his second term in a landslide, winning by almost 15,000 votes on the night.
Looks like the people of Southland have put their trust in me to represent them for another 3 years, so that's a real honour and a privilege, and would love to have the opportunity to go forward and advocate for them for another 3 years.
Mooney wasn't the only Southland MP elected on Saturday night. ACT candidate Todd Stevenson is also set to join Parliament as number 4 on his party's list. Meanwhile, Labour's Southland candidate Simon McCullum watched the tough evening with family and friends, gaining just over 5,000 votes, but grateful to supporters.
It's a hard night for Labour. Obviously, the country has spoken that they're not happy with how things are going because of often outside forces, but I think that we will have to regroup.
Both Penny Simmons and Joseph Mooney say they're looking forward to getting to work under a new National-led government once the final results are in. Across the South Today.
Canterbury's Kiwi Rail drivers are on edge after 2 horror train crashes in 2 days. One person was killed on Wednesday after being hit at a level crossing in Darfield. That followed an accident the previous morning where a teenager driving a stolen car was lucky to walk away after colliding with a train.
One person has died after being struck by a freight train in Darfield early on Wednesday morning. Emergency services responded to the incident around 7 a.m. Kiwi Rail says the loaded train was travelling from Darfield to Christchurch when it collided with the pedestrian at the crossing, which had warning lights and bells. State Highway 73 was closed with diversions in place, while the Serious Crash Unit carried out a scene examination. It's been a horror 2 days for Canterbury train drivers. On Tuesday, a train collided with a stolen car on Lincoln Road in Addington at around 4 in the morning. Police say the teenage driver was very lucky to walk away from the wrecked vehicle. Inquiries are continuing into both incidents. KiwiRail says the drivers of both trains are uninjured and are receiving support. In Christchurch, the South today.
Dunedin motorists were at a standstill earlier this week after a fatal crash closed the northern motorway near Mount Cargill.
The crash between a car and a motorcycle happened on State Highway 1 north of Dunedin, just after 10 o'clock this morning. Police say the accident completely blocked the road, confirming the motorcyclist died at the scene, but there were no other injuries. It's understood the serious accident occurred in a passing lane, heading up a hill north of the Waitati Valley Road intersection. 3 fire appliances alongside multiple ambulances and police vehicles attended the scene, with tarpaulins put up to shield the crash area from onlookers. Light vehicles were diverted along Waitati Valley Road, but trucks were left stranded for a period as they're too heavy to use the diversion route. The stretch of State Highway 1 between Great King Street on the way to North East Valley, right through to Harvey Street in Waitati were closed to traffic, but were reopened by late Thursday afternoon. In Dunedin, the South today.
Residents and pedestrians in the Christchurch suburb of Linwood are having to sidestep around a large monolith object which has popped up in the middle of the footpath. Apartment developers widened the busy thoroughfare but shifted a telecommunication utility cabinet, so it now blocks the walkable part of the path.
These Christchurch residents are having to negotiate around a large obstacle in their path. Residents in Linwood are baffled by the sudden appearance of a sizable monolith, which is blocking the Stanmore Road footpath. It's been installed right in the middle of the path, but the Christchurch City Council claims it's only received one complaint so far. They insist the location of the Chorus-owned telecommunications utility cabinet hasn't changed, and say recent development to construct apartments in the area has made the footpath slightly wider. The developer has then rebuilt the footpath around the utility cabinet, but one puzzled and annoyed resident says this has left very limited space either side of the box and reckons it's nuts that it was allowed to happen. Other locals are raising concerns about people with mobility issues who would struggle to get past the wide obstacle. The council says it's now trying to contact the developer to ask if they can agree to add additional footpath material either side of the manhole and cabinet to give more footpath width to the sides and around the cabinet. No target date for any improvements has yet been set. In Christchurch, the South today.
Whai Yakane, still to come on Southern Newsweek. Solutions are brewing to improve a notoriously bad Dunedin intersection, but one city councillor is unconvinced. And election coverage continues as we head to Christchurch with another shake-up. Tēnā koe, welcome back. Traffic could be banned from crossing the state highway at a notorious intersection in North Dunedin if a low-cost solution is adopted. Waka Kotahi NZTA is suggesting a number of fixes to try and make the busy intersection near the gardens safer, but a city councillor thinks it could just make things worse.
A busy intersection in need of a rearrange. The North Dunedin intersection between State Highway 1 and Great King Street is being put under the microscope as Waka Kotahi NZTA looks into creating a safer route for drivers. The transport agencies come up with multiple solutions to cut out the crossover of the two busy roads near the gardens, including creating alternative routes with a roundabout or a turn-off on Bank Street. However, Dunedin City Councillor Jim O'Malley is unconvinced. He's dismissed the proposals as low-cost cop-outs and doesn't believe they'll make any difference.
I would argue that probably it's certainly no safer and it could even be a bit more dangerous.
Transport officials say they've been studying the Pine Hill Road and Great King Street intersection for over 25 years. O'Malley says they shouldn't overlook the previous suggestion of an underpass, which he still believes would be the best and safest solution.
The only really safe way to deal with this intersection is a grade separation. One's going to have to go under the other. I'd imagine this one will go under that.
But Waka Kotahi doesn't think a multi-million-dollar underpass or flyover would be economical. The issue's set to be examined further next year as part of a business case around broader State Highway 1 roadworks needed to accommodate construction of the new Dunedin Hospital. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A former Wanaka man went from heaven to hell within hours of arriving at Tel Aviv airport last weekend as the Israeli-Palestine escalated. Topher Strauss has given a first-hand account of the events that unfolded prior to the Hamas attacks earlier this month, which caused thousands of deaths.
Terrifying sounds of explosions and air raid sirens wailing. Former Wanaka filmmaker and artist Topher Strauss is now based in the United States, but was documenting his first trip to Jerusalem for an art project. However, his day out swimming in the Mediterranean Sea quickly descended into a nightmare. He was soon forced to run along the beach, shooting images while rockets were being launched above him as Hamas struck from the Gaza Strip.
I don't know what's going on, but you can see missiles above me.
The military operation was in response to what's been described as growing Israeli aggression in the West Bank, which has seen thousands of deaths on both sides. Strauss also filmed himself running on the streets later that night, looking for a safe place to stay, before returning back to his accommodation. Tel Aviv airport was a scene of chaos, with mass cancellations of flights the next morning, and thousands of people waiting in line for answers.
It's a horrible situation. Still kind of digesting what has happened to so many innocent people.
Strauss was able to secure a flight out and is now safely at home with his mother and family in the United States, posting an emotional update to his many friends in Wanaka. From Tel Aviv, the South Today.
Well, back to elections. Christchurch had one electorate with something of a national focus. The seat of Ilam was previously held by National Party veteran Jerry Brownlee, but he lost it to Labour's Sarah Pallett in the red wave of 2020. This year, there was a third contender, Opportunities Party leader Rafe Manji, campaigning hard for the seat and aiming to bring in more top MPs off the list.
Celebrations as Nationals' Hamish Campbell wins the Ilam seat by an election night majority of more than 6,000 votes ahead of Rafe Manji. The hotly contested seat was picked to be the one to watch in Christchurch. Campbell says he was happy to reclaim the seat for National.
The message is loud and clear. I think people were wanting a change, so I think that's what we've seen in the results tonight.
Manji, a former city councillor turned leader of the Opportunities Party, had hoped to win the Ilam seat to give Christchurch a voice in Parliament.
I think it shows that, people do worry about the future and people are worried about Christchurch, and I don't think Christchurch was talked enough about in this election.
He says it is a strong result for National and he'll likely not run in an electorate again.
Trying to reach people is probably the hardest thing, but yeah, we did what we could, and it's not a bad result, but we didn't win, so that's it.
Incumbent Labour MP Sarah Pallett says she was disappointed with the result. At number 51 on Labour's list, she is out of Parliament. She says Rafe Manji running in the Ilam electorate split the vote.
I thought from the very beginning, as soon as I knew that Rafe was standing, that he would likely do what he did in 2017, which is to split the vote and give the win to National. And we've seen that happen again, which is disappointing, but it's politics.
Official results are expected to be confirmed early November. In Christchurch, the South Today.
One Southland runner will be putting his mental fitness to the test while also raising some money for a good cause.
Invercargill's Simon Patton was getting warmed up earlier this week to accomplish his ambitious goal of completing 5 great walks in 5 days. The 37-year-old's journey covers almost 250 kilometres across Southland and Fiordland to raise money and awareness for bowel cancer New Zealand. Patton's always been passionate about running and wanted to make a difference after losing an uncle and friend to the disease.
There's 2 different pains in life that you can live with, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And I've sort of chosen that pathway of the pain of discipline, and that's come into play a big part in training for this.
And he's got plenty of support, already hitting his initial target of $10,000 before even hitting the track. Patton flew to Stewart Island ready to start running the Rakiora track on Thursday morning, with the aim of completing his mission with the Rootburn track next Monday. In Invercargill, the South Today.
Fish and chip lovers in Mosgiel could be left hungry after a local cult favourite Chippy announces it's closing its doors after almost 40 years. Choi's Takeaways is now getting ready to fry their last fries as the owners plan for a well-deserved retirement.
Wrapping up what might be one of their last meals, cooked with love. Choi's Takeaways is a popular takeaway in Mosgiel, but the fish and chip shop is soon set to close after almost 4 decades of serving up tucker to the community. The fast food eatery on Gordon Road is co-owned by husband and wife Warren and Julie Choi, who say the high temperature workload is taking a toll on their bodies.
We're retiring after 37 and a half years. The kids are all grown up now, so time to move on, do our own thing now. Slower pace of life.
Their kids have also been kept in the kitchen, working 7 days a week until they had graduated from university.
I suppose being born and bred in Mosgiel, you sort of got to know your locals from way back, and it's when you see 4 or 5 generations come through that door, you think, I think we're getting older, Warren.
The Chois admit they'll miss their loyal customers the most, with the takeaway shop set to close its doors for the final time later this month. In Mosgiel, the South Today.
Whaiakane still to come on Southern Newsweek. Some water speedsters made their way to Cromwell for this year's World Jet Boat Marathon. And Invercargill's main stadium got a temporary rebrand to honour a Southern netball legend. Tēnā koe, welcome back. A Sunday afternoon drive took on a whole new meaning in Cromwell last weekend as dozens of keen racers took to the rural backroads. Competitors had a challenging new course to tackle this year after organisers secured permission to use a public street for the big event.
Showing off their speed against a very scenic backdrop. The Central Otago Motorsport Club revved up on Sunday afternoon for their annual tarmac sprint taking place on Mount Pisa Road. Founding member Ken Galbraith says the club's been trying to secure the public street for racing for the last 11 years, and the 3.5 kilometre course proved a challenge for drivers.
It's uphill, there's fast spots, it's technical, and for most of us it's close to home as well.
29 drivers from Central Otago and Queenstown hit the road for the event. Competitors racing in a variety of vehicles, from hatchbacks through to fully fledged race cars.
And you want to have fun, and this is grassroots. This is grassroots racing, where that's all you want to do is you put the car on the trailer, come here, take it off, go for a race, put it back on the trailer, and it's all good for the next event.
The council closed Mount Pisa Road for the big race day, Galbraith thanking local residents for giving them the space to allow drivers to show off their motorsport skills. In Cromwell, the South Today.
A Southland stadium got a new name this week in honour of a legendary netball coach. Invercargill's Netball Fortress was temporarily renamed as the Robin Broughton Stadium, just in time for an important international test match.
A stadium full of memories for these former netballers. Invercargill's ILT Stadium Southland is getting a new name for 1 week. It'll be known as the Robin Broughton Stadium to mark the venue's hosting of the 3rd test of the Constellation Cup on Thursday. The initiative pays homage to the long-time former Southland netball coach who passed away last month, leaving former Southern Steel captain Wendy Frew with special memories.
She was like a second mum to me. She started coaching me when I was really young and had over 10 years under her. So for me, she was such a great friend and inspiration and a really good leader, and she cared so much for the player and on and off the court.
The new stadium name will only be temporary, but 2-time Olympian Donna Wilkins is looking forward to bringing her family along to the match.
It's pretty special. Robin Broughton was huge in Southland, so to be able to do something around that for a netball test down here in Invercargill with the renaming of the stadium is a huge honour for her and her family.
Frew and Wilkins are tipping the Silver Ferns to bring their A-game for the Southland crowd on Thursday night and say they're hoping the team will get one over Australia in honour of Robbie. In Invercargill, the South Today.
Strength and teamwork were on display in North Canterbury last weekend as competitors in the annual Southland Tug of War tugged for victory.
It's an annual event in the small Waimakariri town of Southland, and windy conditions did little to dampen the enthusiasm of competitors in the annual Southland tug-o-war. Stormy weather had cut power and water in the district on Sunday, but a total of 20 teams still lined up to contest the tug-o-war competition. Teams faced off at either end of the long rope, hoping their strength and combined weight would prevent their opponents from dragging them down.
And this year, all the funds raised is going towards the new playground design and redevelopment. So a lot of money needing to be raised, and it's probably going to take a couple of years, but that's what we're working towards.
However, damage caused by the high winds meant one team had to be substituted at the last minute. Their crew were all needed for the urgent job of restoring power, demonstrating how resilient small rural communities can be in adversity.
And maybe that's reflective of all small communities, you know, when we have to, we pull together. And yes, there's families out there that didn't have power last night and, you know, trees are down and fences are down, but they're still here. So
the top tug-of-war award was won by the Grown team. Later, despite all the sore muscles, teams went to work, helping clear up after the storm. In North Canterbury, the South Today.
South Island rivers saw plenty of high-speed water action this week, with some of the world's best jet boat talent in action. The international stars made their way to Cromwell to compete in this year's World Jet Boat Marathon.
These jet boats are set to go full speed at the UIM World Jet Boat Marathon. Around 30 competitors were busy putting in their final preparations at the Highland Motorsport Park on Saturday. North American racer Dale Whiteside shipped his jet boat all the way from Canada for this week's racing and says there was a lot of preparation in the lead up to the event.
Well, you're just trying to train your mind and your body and make your decisions a reflex. And reading the water and reading the river and the weather and everything is the biggest challenge.
Every year, one country's national champs becomes the World Marathon, with hosting rights rotating between the United States, Mexico, Canada and New Zealand. Whiteside reckons river racing is a rewarding sport, one that's allowed him to compete against some of the best around the world.
A lot of friends have been developed in this racing group over the last 20 years. A lot of the guys here that I race with come to North America.
The World Jet Boat Marathon got underway on the Dart River on Sunday, with races set to cross the finish line on the Waimakariri River at the end of the week. In Cromwell, the South Today.
For the first river run tomorrow.
A Southland man is on a mission to continue the dream he shared with his late wife, transforming their 100-year-old property into a gardening oasis. The Waikaia couple discovered over a dozen rare fruit trees when they bought the rundown cottage around 40 years ago, including some varieties no longer found elsewhere in the world.
Northern Southland watercolour artist Crosby Grieve tending to his garden, just like his late wife Candice used to, at their century-old cottage. The couple bought the property in 1982, along with 0.8 hectares of land near Waikaia. The area was well positioned and protected from the weather behind the hills. Grieve says the garden looked a lot different when they first viewed the cottage, but the couple fell in love with the place the moment they arrived.
There was apple trees, there was bellbirds singing, and you could hear the stream, and Candice leaned over the bonnet and said to me, "We're buying this place." And that's where it started.
Over the years, Crosby and his late wife Candice had perfected making apple cider and reckons their fruit tastes a lot better than the ones bought at the supermarket. He says a heritage fruit specialist once told him many of his fruit varieties would no longer be found in Europe, but were still growing in parts of New Zealand where the settlers originally planted them.
One wonders why you would plant 20 different varieties of apple trees, in fact 40 trees in one place.
Grieve admits he's not as much of a green thumb as his late wife Candice, but is aiming to continue taking care of their garden for many years to come. In Waikaia, the South Today.
That wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news and videos from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz. And you can follow Channel 39 on YouTube and the South Today NZ on Facebook to catch our news bulletins on demand. We'll see you again next week. Mā te wā.
Public interest journalism funded through New Zealand On Air.